Alright, welcome back to the channel. So, this time when we arrived to the cabin, we could see that the windows were where we requested them to be delivered to. And we counted and we had all of them like we should, and now we're kind of figuring out what to do with them, since they were packaged quite nicely, and if we kind of unpacked them, we were afraid that they might fall over and break, so we needed to kind of build a brace for the packages. So you can see that it's a bit kind of tilted towards the lake, so we put braces on that side so that we could disassemble the package and get the from the left side, you can see from here, we could take those first. And also you can see that we have a guest this time. This is my father, and as you can see during the video, he's the kind of only one who knows what he's doing. So we are trying to do our best and help him, but he's kind of always knowing what to do most. But yeah, so here we are putting these just wooden planks on the ground so that we don't need to put the window against the gravel. So we want to take the first window now down and set it against the wood. And this was already a big accomplishment for us. So we managed to get one of them separated. And here you can see we were kind of trying to use these suction cup handles. And they were not working as well as you could hope. So instead, what we opted to use was just these kind of lines or these straps. You can see the blue one on the ground. We carried the window down with those instead. And we were 4 people who could like actually carry, as you can see here. So we had the suction cups available, but we kind of didn't count on them. And here we skipped the stairs, since that was a bit of an operation, but we managed with a few breaks during the descent. But here you can see us carrying one of the big windows to the cabin, and it was manageable. One thing we also kind of thought about and discussed was if we should order some kind of a crane or a lift to help us get these down. But once we realized that they were like only 100 kilograms, we decided that we could manage just the 4 of us carrying them down instead. I think the crane would have been a bit overkill. Okay, and here we now have 2 windows already carried down. So those are the big ones to the lake and to the sauna. And what we're doing here is kind of trying to get the bottom of the window level. So you can see in the corner that the right-hand side is a lot higher than the left window. So we're kind of adding these planks under the window so that they are on the same level. Okay, so we are installing the planks under the window to get them level, and we also need to level the kind of wood or the log beneath it, since that was just how it was after I used the chainsaw to kind of try to level it. So yeah, we're using this kind of electric planer to get some of the uneven bits out. And once we have that done, we will also add this kind of polyurethane foam as a insulation. So we will put the foam first and then put the first plank and then vitut. Here you can also see Hugo using the electric planer to get some material out. So the planks were a bit too thick, so we needed to get some extra material from the log first, and then we could install the actual planks.
Onko tasainen?
Miltä se näyttää?
Vai keikkaako?
Trying to figure out, is it even?
Level.
Yeah, level plus.
So we're using a spirit level to see how far off we are. Anyways, here's the end result. So we managed to raise the level by around 2 centimeters, so that the window's bottom is on the same level as the one next to it. So they would look nice like that. Okay, here you can see the foam being put, and then we put the 2 planks on top of each other, so we could got the base level on the same. And once we have these installed, we will be installing the window on top of it.
So now we are installing the leveling screws. They are quite thick.
The window will rest on those.
Yeah, it's big.
Mitä tehdään?
Lähemmäs.
Okay.
So now we are moving the window closer.
Okay.
Yeah, so now we're installing the first window, and this was kind of exciting time since we had no idea how they would fit and how they would look. So we had Hugo on the outside with a wooden stick trying to make sure that it won't fall outside, and I'm trying to hold it and kick it with my foot to make it go to the right place. And as you can see, there's a lot of sped up content this time. This is because we were talking quite a bit of Finnish over this, so that's why we have a bit more voiceover in this episode. And now that we have the window at least pretty much in the correct place, we are installing these kind of wooden slants, so this, or wedges, and those will keep the window in place before we screw it in. So with these wedges we can fine adjust the distance between the logs and the vertical beams. And unfortunately I didn't realize that these wedges kind of will be left there between the window and the beams, so I didn't buy enough of them. So we will be doing making our own wedges also. And it's also quite easy to make your own wedges. We will show them later on in this video, but this pack of 20 wedges cost €6, if I remember correctly. So in that sense, compared to the effort of making your own, I think in the future we will continue making our own wedges instead. So here we install the screws to the windows, since the wedges alone will not keep them for long. But these weren't in quite nicely, and we managed to even get to Johanna screw some in.
Kristian aika hyvin. Nykäs sitä oikein sinne ulospäin.
Yeah,
View from the outside.
it just looks so good.
Looking quite good. This one will be the pair doors, but one more window will go to the side.
Okay, with the first window being a resounding success, we felt confident going with the second one. And I think it was quite easy now that the first one already was installed. Again, checking that it's level both horizontally and vertically, so that it's not kind of leaning anywhere. And here you can see my father checking first the level and then adding the installation screws again for this window also. So these two big windows are this kind of safety glass, so that if someone, for example, walks through them, they break into million tiny pieces instead of these big sharp wedges. So they're safer in that sense also.
This is quite new, that's why it looks so pretty.
Organized.
Yeah.
So one thing to note here is that when building log cabins, you are supposed to leave a big gap on the top of the window, or between the window and the log, so that when the logs start shrinking, there is room for it to kind of go down. And we didn't leave any gaps here, since this cabin is built in the 60s, so it has had already almost 50 years, or 60 years even, to shrink down. So we weren't too worried about that anymore. Here you can see the pair door, and we had to disassemble it at the top before we carried it down, since it would have weighed too much for us to carry. So it has this frame and then the two doors. And again, we're planing first the bottom so that it would kind of stand flush against it. And there were also some leftover bits of wood in the corner that the planer couldn't get to, so we used a basic chisel and hammer to get rid of those. Okay, now that me and Hugo are done standing around, we can actually try and fit the frame in the hole. And it is looking quite level, so we decided to start wedging it in place. We used a lot more of these wedges for this door, since we kind of want the bottom part of this frame to be like really level, so that when we close the door it will actually close nicely. Yeah, so the double doors are also tricky in that we have kind of two different hinges and two separate doors which need to close, and they need to kind of meet in the middle. So this required a bit more kind of fine tuning. And you can also see this tree stump behind Hugo, and that's kind of been there pretty much forever. Yeah, and the tightness of the screws was also quite important, because if it's not enough, then it might kind of be too loose, but then if you tighten them too much, the frame will kind of bend, and then the doors won't close nicely anymore. And here you can see, so we have this 2x2 wood beam, and we're cutting these kind of angled cuts to it, and then once we have done enough of those, we cut it parallel so that we can get the wedges out. And this was quite useful, since we needed a lot more of those wedges than I had anticipated, because I only bought one pack of 20 from this local hardware store, and that was like €6. And instead, if we do it like this, we can make as many as we want. Of course, that uses a bit of our 2x2 lumber, but it was worth it, since we needed so many more of them than I had expected. Another useful thing about making these wedges yourself is that you can define how big of an angle you want. So if you need this kind of lower angle and longer wedges, you can just cut it in a shallower angle, and then you get more fine tuning. Or if you just need a big short wedge, then you can just do it in a larger angle. And here we are finishing up the frame for the double doors, so we still needed more wedges and need to make it level in both directions, and then we tighten the screws to make it perfect, square. Now here we have the first door being installed. So we carried it into place and then tried to get the hinges in the correct spot. But this is where we kind of realized also that the door doesn't have enough space to open properly, since the tree stump is in the way. So that had to be cut. but luckily the stump, or the part of the stump that we cut off, is the perfect size for splitting firewood. So we will carry it to the place where we make our firewood, and we can use the axe against that tree stump. We can use it as a cutting block. And here's the second door. So we got the first door to open nicely, and now we get the second one in place, and then we are interested to see how well it will close. And it closed quite nicely and immediately also locked. So we got to test that the lock also works. So here my father is putting this polyurethane foam insulation so that the door and the big windows won't let any bugs or anything in, and also keep warm air inside. You need surprisingly little amount of this foam, since it expands into a much bigger size. So here my wife is also trying to kind of maybe push it back a little, since it was almost overflowing on the other side.
So now it looks like this from the outside.
Yeah.
And now we are preparing this other side door. So when installing doors or windows to a log cabin, you want to have this kind of crevice where you will put this small wooden beam. So we're using 2x2s, so that you don't install the door directly to the logs, since the logs might still shrink and they will kind of weigh themselves down. And if the door is installed directly to those logs, it might either prevent it from going down and then causing gaps to appear, or it might even somehow break the frame of the door or something like that. So that's why it is good to do these gaps here where you can install the wooden support beam. And here Hugo is planing the support beam a bit smaller so that it fits in the gap. And there you can see me again, just trying to be out of the way. But yeah, this was just again one-time thing that my father came and helped us with these windows and doors, since we had pretty much no idea what to do with this. So it was very good to have him help us. But again, since he knows what he's doing, it feels a bit like we're more in the way. So we're trying to help and learn so that we can do it ourselves the next time. And here is the last of the stuff that needs to be carried down. This is the door for the other side that we just created the support beams for and our helpers. But yeah, so using these carrying lines or ropes, it went quite nicely. The suction cups did not work for us at least. But yeah, some snow still visible on the ground. But we created a path for ourselves so we didn't slip and fall with the windows and doors. Some last minute measuring before we install the door. And here's the small window by the door being installed. So for this window we went with this design that in the bottom has this opening latch that opens from the top. So it kind of tilts over. Here you can see me open, or having the bottom part of the window open and closed, so that's quite nice. We also have these bug nets pre-installed for all of the windows that will open, so that we can ventilate the cabin without having all of the bugs inside. In Finland we have quite many bugs during the summer heat. Luckily during this springtime, when it's still a bit colder, there's no bugs yet. And this will be the bedroom window. So the current plan is to have this bedroom in the corner where we're installing the window at the moment. And they also apparently tried to install it the wrong way around, since the black highlights are supposed to be on the outside, but luckily they figured it out before they screwed it in. But here we can see a nice team effort with the grandson and grandfather. This is also one of the reasons we wanted to do this kind of cabin project, because we wanted to have this knowledge transfer from one generation to another. And here, instead of just my father teaching me, he's also teaching my son already. thank you for watching this episode. In the next one we will be installing the remaining windows and also the front door. We will be also making this inspection hatch to the top. Stay tuned for that.